Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Don Hudson. We're joined by our panel of pundits. We have Michael Covington, our industrial consultant, with us this week, Craig Griffith, healthcare analyst, and Courtney Piper, our political contributor. Thank you all for being here. I want to start by talking about the Knoxville Police Department's internal investigation, and this is 2/3 of it. It's not the whole thing. We stopped printing because it was going on and on. It's like 900 pages. Multiple officers were investigated and actually disciplined, at least in some ways, various degrees. I want to get your take on them doing the investigation and if the punishments were harsh enough based on what you've seen and what you've heard through television and through other places. Courtney, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I've been reading the news coverage of this announcement, and, Chief Noel did not mince words. He said this was a failure of the police department. There were several failures. The police officers did not follow proper protocol and policy when interacting with Miss Edwards, and even questioned the hospital security and for officers as well in terms of how they handled the situation. So this seems to be a clear failure just across the board. And to Chief Noel's credit, he did not mince words at all. He assumed responsibility for it, and it appears like he is taking some steps to change it, not only with disciplining the officers, but looking at the department as a whole.
Craig?
Well, this whole incident's a terrible tragedy. The police officers involved, I'm sure, are not happy that this woman died in their custody. That's not what they're on the force for. But it does bring up a couple of issues to my mind. First of all, is there a need for a unit in the police department that would respond to something like this other than police officers? Do we need social workers to come to an issue like this that they can identify a place for this woman to go other than jail, which is where they were taking them? And I don't know that would be the best place for a woman in her condition. And I think the hospitals have social workers, they have pastoral care, things like that. I think that the hospital could have done a better job in other than saying this woman is stable, she's out of our care now, and not caring about what the next step is. So it brings a lot of issues to mind, and I agree with what the chief said. I mean, it was a sad predicament for the police officers to be in, and they didn't handle it well. And so I think that people in the police department need to understand that their interactions with the public are a key to what's going to be the trust that the department has in the community. And these interactions, they need to improve. And I think the chief understands that. And I don't think there's a need to remove the chief for what's going on in this issue. But I think that things hopefully will go better the next time. I hope the whole department will be on notice that, when we're in situations like this, dealing with people who are at the very bottom rung of the ladder. This woman, obviously, she didn't have a place to go. She was in terrible health and needs something other than going to jail.
Michael, do you think the police officers were put in a bad position and then made it worse, or was it just their own doing?
The police officers were put in a very awkward situation, and then they were thrown under the bus. The family of Lisa Edwards should recognize that their loved one was cast aside and put out on the street by Fort Sanders Hospital. Fort Sanders neglected the needs of this woman, and Fort Sanders is responsible for her death. We're talking about admonishing police officers for, in the case of Brandon Warlock, former Sergeant Brandon Warlock, he essentially told the lady, we've been called by the hospital or by the guards contracted by the hospital. They have told us that the hospital wants you gone. He simply articulated that in an inartful way. He simply said, I don't know where you're going, but you got to get the heck out of here.
Right.
And it was callous. It was. He did not appear to be well trained and well schooled in how he should have responded to Ms. Edwards. He should not have allowed the security guards to touch her and search her bag. That's a training issue. So they want to admonish the police department. The police department should look within at the training of the officers. Did Sergeant Brandon Warlock get the training he needed to appropriately respond to this situation? I would venture a guess that they glossed over this or they never considered it in the training. This gentleman was a sergeant, which means he should have known. He obviously didn't. All of that aside, Lisa Edwards has gone on. She has passed away because Fort Sanders neglected to first do no harm. They put her out on the street. Fort Sanders should be spitting on a spit for how they treated Lisa Edwards.
I know the attorney for the Lisa Edwards issued a statement about the Knoxville police and also said that the culture is an issue and maybe the Chief Noel needs to either resign or the mayor needs to fire him. Should that attention be on him in this case, or again, should it be more on the hospital where the police arrived at the scene saying, okay, here's what's the situation, and now we're in the middle of it? Is this a police thing or the hospital thing, or just some of both? Courtney?
Well, it's his police department. The buck stops with him. But again, that doesn't absolve Fort Sanders from any responsibility. And candidly, everything that I've heard Chief Noel saying, he has taken responsibility for this situation and is taking actions to not only try to resolve what happened that day outside of Fort Sanders Hospital, but also make sure it doesn't happen again within the department. That is the best that he can do. And it appears that he is doing that with everything that he has said publicly. His police department, the buck stops with him. He appears to be taking that responsibility very seriously. But that doesn't absolve Fort Sanders from responsibility from the situation at all.
And Michael, I got you off there a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, again, I appreciate Chief Noel making certain that the buck stops with him. I can appreciate the penalties that he assigned to those officers. One officer was demoted. He's no longer a sergeant. He's simply a police officer. He was trying to do his job. He fell short. And so hopefully his career will rebound from that. The others received 10 and 4-day unpaid suspensions, slaps on the wrist. The driver was the only reasonable person amongst the law enforcement that arrived. He saw that there was a breathing issue. Police officers do have a tremendous responsibility. One officer saw that there was a problem. Things may have happened differently had the other officers recognized that we need to listen to this officer that's seeing that there's a problem. The question then becomes, what would Fort Sanders have done? And Craig mentioned this earlier. Had they mentioned that this lady needs a little bit more care? I know you've released her. I know you want her arrested, but she may be dying. The question then is, what would Fort Sanders have done? And I wonder if Fort Sanders would have turned a blind eye to this woman and allowed her to die.
And Craig, last word on that?
Well, neither side is looking good in this particular issue. I think that the nursing staff at the hospital, the security staff at the hospital should have realized the distress that this woman was in and worked harder to find a place for her to go other than jail, which is what the police officers would have taken her to. And then the police officers didn't handle it in the best way. So again, it gets back to maybe we need somebody other than police officers dealing with issues like this. So that they can deal with more substantial police issues that the community has. I mean, the chief has stepped up. He's said what he thought about it, and it wasn't pretty. But I really haven't seen the hospital step up a whole lot and say there's more we could have done. And having worked in a hospital, they were probably instructed by their attorneys not to say that, right? Because there will be the threat of lawsuits going on, and they need to say that we were instructed to say that this woman was stable. We did everything we could for her, but I don't think they really did everything they could for her.
All right. Well, I appreciate all your comments. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be back with more Tennessee This Week. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. The next topic for discussion is something that's just been ongoing, and getting bigger and bigger, is the ending of Title 42 and really what's going on at the border and beyond the border, because now we have politicians like in New York and Chicago that aren't even border states saying, hey, we have way too many illegal migrants or undocumented migrants, whatever you want to call them, coming here. We can't feed them, we can't clothe them, we can't house them. What do you make of the situation at the border? And do you think that politicians should be doing something to slow the number of migrants coming into our country? I don't know who wants to take that first.
Well, I think that if they want to do that, they should, to a degree, look at themselves. Congress hasn't passed, any immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform in decades. So, and we need a comprehensive plan that looks at work permits. Employers across the nation are looking for workers, and the immigrant labor is going to be the only source for them. We need something to deal with the dreamers issue, the people that were born here and have lived their entire life in the United States. And we need to look at the reasons why so many people are coming to the border. Are the conditions so bad in these countries that they need to come in, risking life and limb with these pirates and smugglers that are charging an arm and a leg to get them across the border or to the border? So it's a very difficult problem, and it's only gotten worse because conditions in South America have gotten worse as well. So I think that, we need to have this comprehensive immigration reform that addresses the universe of problems, not just building the wall, ending asylum, things like that, which are only part of the problem.
I'm seeing on some reports 7,000 to 10,000 people coming through the border a day. Can the United States, can our states handle this? Because based on the video, we're seeing where some of them are staying and where they're being housed or not being housed. Can we even handle that influx?
Well, it certainly will be difficult. That's a lot of people. But, if you put troops at the border to try to stop them, what are the troops going to do? Are they going to take arms up against these people? It's a difficult question.
I'm going to say something that's kind of tongue in cheek, but the mayor just released her budget, and she's building up Western Heights, and units are being built on every little lot in the city of Knoxville. And I just kind of chuckle when I think about the number of illegal immigrants that are coming across the border and the failure of the administration to gain a control over it. We're going to have a lot of people filtering right into Knoxville through a nonprofit bridge program where they're filtered into society. And all of a sudden, you're going to have all these properties that are going to be filled with people who cannot pay for them. And it's just going to be laughable how that gets dealt with down the road. I actually believe that with the 5 million illegal immigrants that have come into the country in the last couple of years, the 1.3 million that have escaped, and the 80 people that are on the terrorist watch list that have been apprehended, those things alone are bad enough. The fentanyl that's coming across the border, that's killing so many people, means that the Border Security Act should be passed, but it won't be. It won't be. The House bill that passed recently about securing the border, it's going to fail in the Senate. It will never even get to the White House for a veto. So we're going to continue to see an influx of people that we cannot care for, that we cannot house, that we cannot feed, because we can't do those three vital things for people that are already in the United States. So it's just madness the way we're not dealing with this situation. So we're approaching critical mass.
Immigration is going to continue to feel overwhelming because we lack any kind of policy reform when it comes to immigration. And without a complete policy reform and overhaul of how we handle and process immigrants who are coming to our border, it will continue to feel overwhelming because there is no structure or process in place to deal with that many people that want to come to the United States and start a new life and start over and be productive members of society. So, unless we start putting different policies and procedures in place to reform immigration, we're going to continue to have this kind of problem, and it's going to continue to feel overwhelming.
All right. What we're going to do is
I might point out that the fentanyl that's coming into the country is coming in, the majority of it, through legal ports of entry. The immigrants you see streaming across the Rio Grande River aren't carrying a couple of tons of fentanyl on them or a couple of pounds. It comes in through vehicles that go through the ports of entry every day. And that's as big a problem as we have. And, we need more people at the border to make it not so easy to bring that fentanyl into the country.
All right. Well, on that comment, we're going to go and take another break. We're back with our final segment here on Tennessee This Week. And welcome back for our final segment of Tennessee This Week. We're going to now talk about some school-related, education-related issues. Parents across Tennessee waiting to find out whether their third graders may need to go to summer school because those TCAP scores not coming out until May 19th. My first question is, the third graders who can't keep up, I guess, from these time tests, is that the answer, summer school or extra credit? And along with that is, why are we making parents wait until the 19th of May to find out they might need to put their kid in school on June 1st? Courtney?
It's all madness, Don. It is all complete and utter madness. And who's losing in this situation is the child, it's the student. I can speak from experience. I was horrible at standardized tests. I mean, I was so bad at standardized tests. But my GPA by the time I graduated high school was close to a 4.0, and I took AP classes. So, it can be extraordinarily unfair to judge a student's ability based on a timed standardized test. And students need to be provided with every opportunity to succeed. And the process that you just described and the timeline you just described is not setting students up for success. It's administrative, bureaucratic madness.
Well, I think it's an example of our state legislature not looking far enough into the future. Passing a law like this, when if it's enforced to the letter of the law, 60% of the third graders in Tennessee would repeat, and they didn't take into account what that impact would be on local school systems across the country. And they also put all their apples into one basket of standardized testing. So I think there's a whole litany of things that are wrong with this. But their goal to improve, the reading abilities in the lower grades is a laudable goal. Right. They just didn't come up with the right means to address it. They only had this one tool in their TCAP toolbox that they could use. And I think that they needed to think more long-term, more strategically about what we're trying to accomplish and what's the best way to do that.
Michael?
Well, a third grader that is an A student should not be fearful of being held back a year because they didn't do well on a standardized test. It just seems that it should be simple to solve this problem by simply putting in place a class that allows children, third graders, if this is the case, third graders should learn how to take standardized tests. There's a way to go about helping a student learn. When you enter the room, this is what you should be prepared for. Your pencil should be a certain way. You should be rested. You should be relaxed. You should understand that you need to do the test or take the test a certain way. It's kind of like in golf. You can learn how to hit the ball a mile, but if you don't learn how to putt, you're never going to be a very good golfer. And so teaching a child how to take a standardized test in such a way that they are comfortable taking the test. Courtney was saying she was an excellent student, but she did horrible on standardized tests. I enjoyed standardized tests because in part, I didn't really care how I did. Why? I was an A student. So you can tell me anything you want about a standardized test. I can do everything that's put before me in the classroom. A standardized test is no yardstick for how intelligent I am. I'm performing in the classroom on a daily basis. Teach students how to take standardized tests. Don't teach them the test, teach them how to take the test.
But do you also think
I don't know what Courtney's experience is.
Listen, I got
the school
1,000 on
system.
my SATs, and that was after I took a course for how to take the test better. I
Well,
don't know what it is. I'm really horrible at standardized tests.
When my kids were in elementary school, I realized that was a long time ago. For weeks before the standardized test, they were prepped how to take the test. The test is coming. You need to get rest. You need to be ready for, and a lot of teachers thought that was way too much emphasis on standardized testing. And they sort of moved away from that in more recent years. But there was an effort amongst the teachers to tell children how to take these tests and how to do well.
Yeah. And again, to what we've been talking about, the goal, of course, is a good goal. We don't want kids going past third grade that can't read and can't comprehend. But I guess some of that would have to fall back on parents too, keeping up with their kids. But now they're all going to find out on the 19th whether they need to go to school on the 1st or something else. So I guess they'll have to keep working on this a little bit more. Last subject today, we want to talk about Knox County schools more specifically instead of the state of Tennessee and the new task force of parents to explain or to help what's needed for special needs. I know, Courtney, you're actually part of that group. So help us all understand this. What is the goal of the group and how big, so that we all understand, how big is the school age special education population in Knox County?
Well, the goal of the Special Education Task Force, as I understand it, is to provide recommendations to the superintendent to improve special education services and supports for students and families. I do not know off the top of my head the total population of special needs students in Knox County. I'm most familiar with the number of children that have an autism eligibility or diagnosis because my son is autistic. And that number is over 800 students that have autism.
In Knox County School?
In Knox County schools alone.
Yes,
and my own experience with trying to get my son the services and support that he needed at our expense. If somebody would have communicated my story back to me, I would have told them they were crazy and there's no way anybody would ever be treated that way. But it happens. And there's a level of frustration with parents, especially, that Knox County can do better and it's not doing better. This announcement of the task force sort of fell on the heels of a lot of lost lawsuits by Knox County related to meeting special needs students' needs. And one of the Court of Appeals reminded Knox County it cannot separate a student from his peers merely because a placement among the general education student population would be challenging or would require creativity. So that's the court's way of telling Knox County schools it can and it should do better. My hope with this task force is that we can start putting some recommendations in place that will make special education services more efficient, that parents will be met with solutions and not resistance, and that students can receive the supports and services they need to succeed in the classroom and meet the superintendent's goal of success for every student.
I'm curious, Craig, your experience as a healthcare expert, your take on finally forming something like this with parents to let the school system know maybe a better approach.
Well, with the new school superintendent, I would hope there would be some openness to looking at old problems in a new light. And hopefully the task force will come up with some new recommendations that will improve the schooling for people with autism and other special needs. It's kind of like any bureaucracy, in which the school system certainly is.
Right.
They look at it and they say, well, I got this amount of money here, and I'm going to divide it up amongst these different programs. And that's what I'm going to do for the next 10 years. And don't change that formula. And if you take money and add a one to improve conditions for the other, what are you going to do? You're going to make some people mad. Right. So hopefully that we will see with the new superintendent policy in a new light, and that we can help children that have, as Courtney has looked over the spectrum, there are protocols and different programs that seem to help that Knox County could adapt. And so I hope in the end, the task force was able to do that and get recommendations that are adopted. And I'm, hesitant. I've told Courtney that, once the task force is over, that's only the end of one phase.
Well, Craig, I'm going to have to cut you off. And Michael, I'm sorry I can't get a comment because we're out of time this week for Tennessee This Week. We thank all of you for being part of it, and we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.